Situated in the outskirts of Los Angeles, Garcia Pharmaceuticals and Bioresearch Laboratory was very crowded tonight. Many cars were parked in its parking and the security was tight. A special event was being held in this pharmaceutical and research company, as today was its foundation day, and the establisher as well as the CEO of this company, Mr. Warren Garcia, was giving an enthusiastic speech to the crowd of guests listening. Among them were renowned businessmen, doctors, politicians, scientists, bureaucrats, and socialites. Therefore, the security here was the best of its kind. Warren Garcia, 50 years old, tall, and strongly built man, who looked to be in his 40s, was clad in an expensive designer suit, and was one amongst the most successful and billionaire businessmen in the whole world. He was very soft-spoken and respectful towards others. His shiny black eyes showed dual characters, honesty as well as cunningness. He was smiling graciously as he went on addressing the prominent people there. I don't consider myself rich, I am still a common man, who's just working harder than others. It's your sweat which counts, not your facade. Some people say that Warren Garcia is amazing. Some say, he's the Lord. Some say, he can do anything he likes, but I say, if Warren Garcia bullshits with his work, then he won't be amazing or lord-like. If he starts messing around with his job, then there are no holidays in Egypt, no cruising and no adventure, and yes, no girls. There were feminine giggles and chuckles from the crowd there. Somebody once asked me why still, I was unmarried. I told him then that I didn't get my kind of girl, but the fact is, that's not true. He paused for a few seconds looking at surprised faces. He then said, putting emphasis on each word, I am married. There were shocked gasps and sighs from the crowd. Don't be shocked, ladies and gentlemen. I ain't married to any girl or woman. I am married to my work, my industry, my dedication towards my chain of companies, and I am not going to divorce them and remarry a female. You all would think of me as a cold and emotionless man, but I would like to admit that marriage wasn't made for me. However, strangely enough, I still find my name in the list of the most sought-out, eligible bachelors in the US, and that too, next to Mr. Dwayne Archer, the young and dashing 25-years-old business tycoon from New York City. A bunch of speakers were sitting silently on the stage, on both right as well as left of Warren. A young and beautiful girl of about 20 years was sitting beside Warren. She was the host of the event and was smiling secretly over Warren's speech. Just then, her smartwatch gave a slight beep, so feeble that it was audible only to her. She looked at it. Then she turned and looked at the back of the podium. A tall, evil-looking man was standing behind the curtains and he called her by waving his hands. Something must have seriously gone wrong, or else, this man would never have showed up. The host stood up and politely touched Warren's shoulder. Warren excused himself from the people there and turned towards the girl with a question in his eyes. The girl whispered something in his ear which deepened his furrows, and he too then looked at the man behind the curtains of the podium. Well, Warren said, turning back towards the crowd, it seems, an extremely important and unavoidable emergency has surfaced up unexpectedly and needs my attention right away. I apologize to you all as I would like to seek a few minutes of absence from here, but don't worry folks, I'll be back soon. Then he stepped back and walked behind the curtains. The girl smiled and said to the crowd, that was Mr. Warren Garcia, the most successful businessman of the year. He really is energetic, isn't he? And now I would like you to meet someone who's special, very special, to Mr. Garcia. In fact, he is Mr. Garcia's backbone. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the renowned gene specialist, and the head of the team of the scientists researching over various biological fields here, Dr. Robert Sapphire. The girl turned towards an old man in his 60s, sitting with the speakers, and said respectfully, Dr. Sapphire, please. The old man got up with a bright smile and said to the girl, thanks Kathy, and then he started addressing the crowd as Kathy sat down. Meanwhile, Warren Garcia and the evil-looking man were walking inside a corridor of the pharmaceutical company. What's the problem, Antonio? Warren asked, walking towards the end of the corridor, which had a private cabin. Antonio Dyson. He was tall and strongly built, almost like a wrestler, with broad chest and puffed-up biceps. He was 32 and his stiff face gave a hint that he had no idea how to smile. A big problem, boss, Antonio said in his harsh and cold voice. What the hell is that big problem, Antonio? Warren asked, suddenly getting irritated, but it was clear that the irritation was due to the interruption in his speech, not due to the problem. Both of them entered the private cabin and Warren sat on an exquisite and cozy sofa. Antonio was standing in front him. Philip. Escaped, Antonio said, trying to remain calm and bold. Warren remained silent for a few seconds. Antonio was looking into his boss' black eyes. Those eyes were exhibiting dual characters. Antonio felt a pang of fear enveloping his calm and bold attitude, but he dared not to show it off to his boss. Warren hated cowards. Warren leaned back on his sofa. He looked away from Antonio. Philip Brinson, he asked, emphasizing on each word. He looked like a bomb ready to explode. Antonio said feebly, yes. But it was as if he had said something worse, and that too, loudly. Raging like a thunder and with a lightning speed, Warren caught Antonio's neck, lifted him high in the air and slammed him on the floor with a loud howl. Antonio looked terrified to his core, after witnessing the changes in his boss form, but his fear clearly expressed that those changes were a routine visual for him. Warren's nails grew long and pointy. His canines protruded like fangs as he bared his jaws, and the front portion of his face looked very much like a muzzle. Long hairs grew over his neck, cheeks, and hands. His ears got elongated. His eyes became yellow. Warren was looking very much like a wolf now. Antonio was shaking with fear and pleaded for mercy from Warren. "Boss, he used strong tranquilizers. I was preparing for today's function. Mercy, please boss." Warren roared with burning anger. "Men like you and mistakes like yours can ruin my whole organization, the organization which had taken 27 years of my life." Antonio pleaded, "Mercy boss. I will find him. I will never let him reach Kurt. I swear. Please boss, have mercy." Warren tried to calm down. He left Antonio and started taking deep breaths. His nails contracted, so did his fangs and muzzle. Hairs vanished inside his body. Eyes became black again. Warren adjusted his designer suit and gestured Antonio to get up. Antonio complied, shaking with fear, feeling guilty. "I have given 27 years of my life to this organization. Sacrificed my desires for the result, damn it. Now look what you have done. If that old dog meets Kurt and tells him." "Don't worry boss. We are monitoring Kurt's calls." Antonio started convincing his boss, or else he knew what could happen. "That old dog, Philip, he did call Kurt." Warren gave a scorching glance at Antonio, but he said quickly, "But he didn't tell him anything." "I assure you, boss. We heard him. He just said that he wanted to meet him and then tell him about everything, but don't you worry, boss, he will never be able to meet him. I had placed Richard, William, Keith and Gelman near Kurt's house. They are keeping a close eye on him. The moment Philip will be seen anywhere near his house or near him, we will grab that dirty old dog." "You better do, Antonio," another angry voice echoed, which not only sent shivers in Antonio's spine, but also in Warren's. Both of them turned towards the entrance of the cabin. "Thomas," Warren said with a surprise and a forced smile on his face. Antonio was too afraid to say anything upon seeing Thomas. Thomas, a tall man of about 39 or 40, was leaning on the wall, beside the door. He too was clad in an expensive designer suit and was wearing a long, leather overcoat over it. He had long black hairs which were neatly combed back. There was a long and deep scar under his left eye which ran down to his neck. "Thomas, have a seat, please," Warren said, with great politeness. Thomas walked slowly, like a king, and sat beside Warren on another sofa. Antonio was looking on the floor. "Warren, Antonio, my friends, do whatever is necessary, but I don't want Kurt to learn the truth about himself," Thomas warned. "Don't worry Thomas," Warren assured, "everything will go as we have planned. We have been waiting for so long, 27 years now. What do you think, Thomas? Will it yield the results we want?" Thomas smiled cunningly, broke his knuckles and whispered, 27 years of labor, 27 years of patience. "Oh yes, Warren. It surely will. It surely will." Somewhere far from there, Catherine Ebenezer started smiling as her eyes met Kurt's, but he seemed not to be noticing her. His eyes, undoubtedly, were fixed on her, but he was lost somewhere else. "Kurt," she called out, walking towards him. He smiled too, but his eyes said it. He was worried. Kitty leaned over the table, coming nearer to his face. "What's wrong with you?" she asked. "Nothing," he lied. "Then why are you so worried?" She touched his cheeks and asked. "I'm not, it's just, I didn't sleep last night." Kurt replied with a forced smile. "I can see, but that's not the actual reason." "Kitty, I'm fine." Kitty made faces and mimicked Kurt. "Kitty, I'm fine." Kurt blushed and there was a genuine smile on his face now. Not a forced one. "Now come on," Kitty said with concern, "will you ever leave this gloomy image? Look baby, I want to see a lively Kurt who likes to live life fullest and party hard." Kurt smiled innocently, not available here, and was about to say something more, but Kitty stopped him. "Now please, don't start on with your so-called philosophies. I ain't in the mood for them today." Kurt smiled again. He loved her smile. Her smile was like a bright sunshine tearing through a cloud-filled sky. He loved her beautiful blue eyes which were like deep blue ocean. Her brownish hair, her red lips. He loved everything about her. He loved her. Catherine Ebenezer. Kitty. 23 years old. Extremely attractive. She herself had no idea how stunning she was. "Kitty," Kurt called out. Kitty, who was now walking towards her chamber, stopped and turned towards him. "Well, as today, the night classes are off, I am free this evening. Can we spend the evening together?" he asked her, with hesitation. Kitty was unable to stop her smile. In the evening, they were in a sleek black Audi, driven by Kurt. They were moving towards the outskirts of Los Angeles. The sky was clear and lit with moonlight. "I love when you drive, Kurt," Kitty said, her blue eyes constantly fixed on Kurt's face. "Why?" Kurt asked. "Because when you drive, it's so smooth, so cozy, that I can even feel my heartbeat for you." Kurt smiled shyly. These were the moments in which he used to smile straight out of his heart. Moments he passed with Kitty were precious and close to him. When any rich guy used to talk to her, Kurt would experience strong pangs of jealousy and desperately wish to beat that guy blue and black. But he knew, that was neither possible nor morally right. Many times, Kurt had thought about proposing to Kitty for wedding, but his chronic chest pain in his dark past strongly recommended him not to do so. "Does your father know about your log house?" Kurt asked. Kitty got a little uneasy when her father was mentioned. A sad expression then came over her face and she struggled hard not to show it off when she said, "No." Kurt sensed her stiffness and sadness, and felt he should remain silent. He didn't ask anything after that, even during the remaining part of the journey. Kitty too, remained silent. Soon the car reached the extreme outskirts of Los Angeles. A lonely place with greenery all around. Huge trees and dense bushes were spread in every direction. Kurt drove the car off the freeway, into the silent woods. After driving almost half a kilometer inside the woods, they finally reached a small, beautiful log house with a wooden fence around its premise. The house was standing alone with the dense woods surrounding it. A bulb was lit on its porch. Kitty got out of the car and opened the fence gate. Kurt drove inside and parked the car under the porch. Kitty was walking slowly towards the front door of the house. She still looked sad. Kurt felt guilty. "I am stupid. I shouldn't have asked that question from her." He got out of the car with a backpack and locked the car. Kitty was opening the lock of the front door of the log house. Kurt entered with her, silently. Kitty took a deep sigh and walked upstairs. Kurt switched on the bulb in the room and locked the door from inside. Cursing himself, he placed the backpack on the table. He then walked upstairs, behind Kitty. He found her in the balcony. She was staring at the trees and the dense woods. She loved this place a lot. Kurt walked and stood beside her. A deep silence was spread everywhere. "I find peace here," Kitty whispered to Kurt, her eyes, watching the greenery around, no shouts, no crowd, no noise, nothing, far from that corrupt and evil human society. Only the silence, the greenery, and the pleasant nature. Kitty worked non-stop on weekdays, and sometimes even on the weekends. She used to get exhausted, tired up by the whole day's schedule. Being the director of a renowned American school was tiresome. So she used to come here, at her small log house, with Kurt, at least once a month. The log house was Kitty's own and she used to take its care heartily. There were fond memories of Kurt's and hers related to this log house. Kurt had never asked about her father or about her private matters, but today he had. Kitty's father, Gucci Ebenezer, one of the richest and most successful business tycoons in the world. He was powerful both financially as well as politically. Breakfast with the President of America once a month, or dinners with the most important officials from the defense and administrative fields was normal for Gucci. But his daughter, his only child, Kitty Ebenezer, she lived away from him, angry of him. Both daughter and father were like two sides of a coin which can never be seen together. Kitty held Kurt's hands. Kurt looked at her beautiful, innocent face and realized. She was weeping. Tears were falling down from her blue eyes. Kurt felt guilty. He didn't know that his words could hurt her so much. He felt culpable from his core. Kitty realized what Kurt must be thinking and she kissed his hand. "Don't feel that you did something wrong," she said. Kurt was about to say something, but she stopped him by putting her finger on his lips. "Hush. You don't need to explain," she said with a weak smile. Kurt wiped her tears. Kitty looked away into the woods and said, "Kurt, I never talk about my father and you have never asked me why I don't, but today, now that you have asked, I will tell you. You are the only one who understands me the best. I will tell you because I love you deeply and I don't want to hide anything from you, not even my most privately guarded secrets." Kurt felt touched. Kitty kept talking, her voice low, but audible to Kurt. He was feeling the sadness, the pain in her voice as she talked. "My dad, he used to love me a lot when I was a child, and not because I was his daughter, or I was a cute child. He used to love me because I was proud of being rich. I was proud of being superior, stronger. My dad didn't love me, he loved my proudness." Kurt was looking at her, attentively hearing. "But as I grew, I saw the real world. I saw the truth. I traveled everywhere. Different countries, different cultures. But one thing was common everywhere, in every country, in every culture, in every religion, and it was the painful torment of the poor and the underprivileged. I visited those countries which have been torn by war, by riots, by cultural feuds. I saw people living on dirty, rotten foods, thrown in the garbage. I saw children dying due to lack of food, basic medicine, clothes. It was immoral, disturbing. I saw beggars, vagrants, being kicked by the rich. I saw servants being slapped and fired by their owners simply because the food wasn't that good. It killed me, killed my pride. I felt I was the poorest person in this world, and therefore, I started taking care of the poor. I helped the underprivileged, beggars, sat with them, and shared the food I ate with them. I walked with them, gave them shelter, gave them respect, peace. She turned and looked straight into Kurt's green eyes, and asked, was it wrong? Was it worth the hate I got from my father? Kurt wiped her tears and said, no. You were doing a great job, far greater than anyone else could have done. But my dad doesn't think so, Kitty said, looking back into the woods. He thinks I am wrong. Rich people shouldn't do such stuff. Giving charity is okay, but walking with them, talking, sharing their sorrows, it is all wrong. My dad started to hate me when I continued doing what I was. He stopped talking to me. He wanted me to stop and return to the high society. The world of fake glitz and lies. How could I, when I had seen through them? How could I, when I had witnessed the soul of truth? How could I return? My dad scolded me, because other rich people, his business partners, friends, they all were gossiping about me. I was told to be ashamed of my deeds. So, I left New York City. I left that huge mansion and came here, to Los Angeles. My mom helped me start this school which I run, Ebenezer School of Higher Education. 3 years had passed since then and my dad still hadn't changed a bit. In fact, he has gotten worse. Full of pride of his wealth and power. He even dislikes the free evening classes we dedicate to the poor and the disabled children, but remains silent because of my mom. My mom, she understands me. After all, she's a mother. She loves me, but is tied to her responsibilities towards her husband. She cares for me and talks about my needs. Kurt wiped her tears. Her beautiful face was wet with tears. She was sobbing with hiccups. I am not proud of my richness anymore, so he doesn't love me anymore. So, I'm here, away from him, away from my father's love. Kitty was sobbing loudly now. Kurt hugged her tightly. He felt infinite love for her. How stupid I am. I used to think that Kitty had no worries just because she was born rich. I was so wrong. Hush, now it was his turn to comfort her. I'm here. I'm with you. Always. And I love you more than anything in this world. Will you always be here for me, Kurt? Kitty asked. At that instant, she resembled a damsel in distress. Of course, I will be, and I promise, Kurt said positively. Kitty hugged him tightly and they remained like that for a few minutes, but it felt like ages. It seemed that time had ceased to move. Everything became slow. Kurt was feeling Kitty's soft and warm skin. The sweet fragrance coming from her body was making him sleepy. His hands were combing her silky hair. His breath was deep and heavy. Suddenly, Kurt felt something in his mind. A slight pain in the back of his head. Kitty felt Kurt's heartbeat. It was decreasing, every second. Even Kurt's hand had stopped moving over her hairs now. He was standing still, with her in his arms, motionless. Kurt, Kitty whispered. He didn't answer. She called again, hugging him tighter. Kurt, why did you stop? Instead of answering, Kurt, all of a sudden, grabbed Kitty's hair in his fist and pulled back forcibly. Kitty screamed with pain. When she looked into his green eyes, she froze with fear. There was a tint of red in both his eyes. He seemed to be angry for ages. His voice sounded different when he said, the time is arriving. Soon, then he pushed her away. She fell on the wooden floor, grimacing with pain and fear. Kurt, wait, she yelled, what are you doing? She started backing away from Kurt as he menacingly walked towards her. It had been ages since I felt a woman, Kurt sneered in a voice which wasn't his own, and grabbed Kitty by her hair. He then lifted her up and grabbed her neck. Kitty wriggled and fought to get free. Kurt was throttling her to death. Tears flowed down from her beautiful blue eyes as she stared straight into his greenish-red eyes. Her mouth was wide open, gasping for breaths, for life. Kurt was also staring directly into her blue eyes. She had the most beautiful eyes he had ever seen. All of a sudden, he left her and started moaning with pain, his hands on his head. Kitty fell on the floor, coughing loudly and started taking deep breaths. She was covering her neck with her hands. Her hair was in disarray and her breaths were heavy and fast. Kurt collapsed on the floor, moaning with pain. His hands were still on his head. Kitty looked at him with panic in her eyes. She was afraid to go near him, but it was her love for Kurt which overcame that fear and made her crawl towards him. Kurt, are you all right? She took his head in her lap. Talk to me, please. Kurt hugged her tightly and started crying. His voice was normal now, his own. Kitty, I'm afraid. I am afraid it will never leave me. Kitty was seeing Kurt cry like this for the first time. She was quite shocked. Kurt seemed to be in great pain. Tears were flowing from her eyes too. It was surprising and painful for her to watch Kurt in such a pitiful condition. She could feel it, his heartbeat. It was faster. His breath, deeper, and he was sweating torrentially. After a few seconds, Kurt stopped crying. He got up, and so did Kitty. Before she could say or ask anything, Kurt asked, "What was I doing?" Kitty asked, quite surprised, "When?" "Few seconds ago, during my blackout," Kurt said in a low voice, his head bowed down. "Blackout?" Kitty's eyes got big. "You have blackouts?" She almost yelled. She had never thought that a guy like Kurt could have such an ailment. In fact, she never had thought that Kurt could have any disease. Kurt replied in a whisper, "Yes, I do, but they are very rare." "But please," he raised his head as well his voice, "for God's sake, tell me what I was doing with you. I had this strange feeling that you were dying." Kitty was in a state of shock. She didn't know what to say. Kurt was unaware of what he had done just now. He didn't know that he was throttling her to death, and Kitty knew if she would tell him about it, he will never forgive himself. So, she decided not to tell him the truth. "You were here, in my embrace, and all of a sudden, you started to moan with pain. Therefore, I held you in my lap. I was holding you tightly," Kitty lied. "No, you are not telling the truth," Kurt said with disappointment. "Please Kitty, I know I did something terribly wrong. But believe me, Kitty, I am not myself during my blackouts. When they occur, there's an impulsive, unbearable pain at the back of my head, and it feels as if someone powerful takes control of my mind, and then, I am sent to a deep sleep, even before knowing who is that someone else. And when finally, I wake up, with that same impulsive unbearable pain, I find everything around me in chaos, as if something terrible had happened," Kurt was telling, and his face was white with fear. "But today, I felt you. I felt you in my sleep. You were staring into my eyes, with fear. I fought hard, to wake up, to get up, I fought hard to break my sleep and, succeeded. But it hurt like hell. I felt such immense pain in my head as if it was going to split into two." Kitty was too shocked to say anything. She was just listening and studying Kurt. Was he saying the truth? Kurt was talking about something that Kitty understood as a split personality disorder. A disorder in which a single person experiences two different attitudes and identities. It was serious and concerning. If it was true, Kurt needed treatment. Kurt looked at Kitty and said, "I am so sorry, Kitty. I really am. I love you so much and I don't want to lose you." Kitty suggested, "Kurt, why don't you see a good doctor or a psychologist? They can help." "Kitty," Kurt stopped her in between, "there's something I want to tell you. Something, which I had never told." Kitty prepared herself for another shot of shock. "I never wanted to tell you about this, but now that you have witnessed a part of it, I have no option left but to tell you. Try to understand and believe it," Kurt kept saying. "Kitty, you always asked me, why I remained sad and alone. You always wanted to know why I was upset and made idiotic excuses. The fact is, I always lied to you, about my sadness, my solitude, my problems. Not because I didn't want to tell you, but because, I didn't want you to get worried, because my problems, my worries, were far worse than my blackouts, far worse than you can imagine." Kitty looked into his green eyes, fully prepared for what was coming next. "Go on, Kurt, I'm listening."